Well, welcome everybody. We've got another artist roundtable, and I've got with me some distinguished artists, combat artists that have been working with the United States Marine Corps Combat Art Program. And we just recently went on a practice session or a training session with the Marine Corps out in MCB Quantico. So I'm going to introduce you guys, or have you introduce yourselves for the audience.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Captain Baumann. I am a logistics officer. I was just an instructor at the basic school, which has served as a great environment for a lot of our training, simply because we go through the entire period of instruction for the students in everything from squad level to platoon level. And so doing military operations in the urban terrain, or MOUT, has always proved to be a very exciting and dynamic environment in which we can just capture some of the exercises and more of the complex, probably more realistic scenes that the students display for us. And so from an artist perspective, just a good opportunity to get some real-time exercise in regarding the tempo of things, how quickly things move, but also just the full kit of gear that gets worn, right? Kevlar, flak, the camelbacks, the boots, the weapons, all that. So it's a really great environment, and today we're going to discuss and look through some of the photos from an invitation that I was able to structure as an instructor there for a small group of us for the basic school.
Other gentlemen?
All right, I'm always terrible at introductions, so I'm Richard Johnson. That's really all I have. So, yeah.
I've got even less. I'm Victor Juhasz.
These gentlemen are well-known and very talented artists and illustrators, so don't let them kid you with their humility.
Yeah,
look them up. So CJ, we'll start the slides here. We'll have you just introduce once again what we were doing, and we'll start talking about it.
Sounds good. All right, so there was me early one morning, looking like a ridiculous individual. These are some candid photos that we were able to take as we were kind of warming up the day. So most of our days, first of all, started pretty early. So the students and their training evolution, it's about a 4-day event, and they start as early. The students will be up as early as 4:30 in the morning, kind of prepping their weapons and stuff. And you can see some of the just basic sitting around scenarios that exist as they're waiting for word. And as the training evolution begins in the morning, with Kris there, kind of hanging out and just getting to know those Marines. And this really, I think, also just exhibits the opportunity that existed on a daily basis, but really was important for us to fully exploit on the first day, which is just introducing ourselves, because most of these students, much less, but even just Marines, when we've gone in country to deploy, wonder who the heck we are, what we're doing, and why we're carrying sketch pads and not weapons, right? And so getting to know them and showing them formal previous work that's in our sketchbook, or just talking to them and explaining more about who we are and what we do, is that initial contact is pretty important. And you can see here, we're just getting started in the day. It was a cold day. I think this was in probably Fox Company. It was probably like November time frame, I think it was.
January, late January.
Okay, yeah. So we'd crossed over into the new year, and yeah, it was cold. It was pretty cold that morning. In fact, I remember we had to burn some fuel in my car for a couple hours, and overnight when we were sleeping, because of how cold it got. I don't know if Richard, you remember how cold it did get, but it forced a couple of us inside of a vehicle instead of sleeping outside on the ground like we had originally intended. But yeah, so the students, again, this is kind of like the culminating event. This is near graduation for them. So they are pretty experienced. They're pretty knowledgeable in the tactics and working as a team. And so we get to see them more in their comfortable state. And they got used to us pretty quickly. So they weren't too worried about us being there. We didn't interfere with that. Yeah, so I was going to say, if you pause here, so this happens to be a piece that I did, but I think the reason it kind of ended up having quite the impact, and I think someone else might have a comment, is I did this picture really because of just the candid approach and the view that it had. And if you look here, you've got Kevlars on the ground that are just upside down and scattered. You've got backpacks that are just scattered all over the place. You've got some people with boonie covers on, some people with not. And as as disorganized as this looks, this is truly what the environment was. Like I was completely true to the experience and the sketches and the photographs that I was using, and it just does such a good job of showing the true environment, right, and being true to the experience that I had. And I ended up showing this photograph or this drawing to pretty much all the instructors that were there with me, both on that day and inside the instructor staff that I work with, excuse me. And everybody said the exact same thing, which was, dude, this epitomizes the experience at TBS, right? Like when an instructor is walking up on a platoon and they're about to start their attack or start their brief or whatever, this is what you see 90% of the time. And so this, from outside, I was just reinforced heavily at how true to the experience this was. So I was really glad it turned out as well as it did.
One of the challenging things I always find is to capture exactly how organic a lot of the material is. You're in an environment which their gear is all made to completely blend in with. And on a number of times, if you're not paying attention, you can actually lose sight of everyone you're supposed to be following because the camera.
Yeah.
This really manages to capture both the scene and the camouflage, which is what I like about it.
What material are you using? What medium? Speaking of materials, what medium is this?
So, yep, inspired by Richard Johnson, yours truly, was the Canson gray paper. I think I had a pad of 18 by 24. So I just took 2 sheets of that and ran it out. So 18 inches tall by, I think it was like 44 inches wide, wow. 2 sheets kind of cut down the middle. And then I just used black and white Prismacolor. And this was, yeah, that approach was kind of inspired by some earlier works that I had seen of his, but that was, I had the panoramic idea in mind. I didn't think it was going to turn out as well as it did. In fact, like the skyline in the background and kind of the trees in the background was a complete experiment.
It's so sculptural. It's almost like it was in there the whole time and you just whittled it right out of the paper. It's really good.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Good observation.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so to not really braid it much more, you can see that there's really, so when the students do their brief, there's about 45-minute period where the students are being issued the attack, right, in a verbal form, and if we're not focused on drawing, we're kind of sitting around being goofy like Kris was. But during that time frame, students are standing still, generally because they're just listening to the individual that's talking. So that usually ends up being a great time to hone in and grab some portraits, which I'm prone to doing. This was taken during a break, so they had just completed attack, and they had about a 20-minute transition time before their next one. And so one of the Marines was sitting there, and I was able to kind of just sketch him quickly. But
can we go back a couple and have a look at that painting by Kris? Because I think that it has similar qualities in a completely different medium to the piece.
I put in a couple of these process shots. So when you're there, I noticed, you see the studio works we always like because we can take time and be a little more pensive about it and really think about it and do the composition. But sometimes they're not as fun as the sketches, obviously. But I really had a good time doing this particular piece. I had done a sketch of this, and all of us have very similar sketches because, like CJ says, there's good time. They're standing there, and we were all sort of moving about and not only taking pictures, but taking time to sketch. So I wanted to reproduce one of the good sketches I made. And so I did this painting in oil. It's about 16 by 20 oil on a toned canvas. And I was just trying to be as, not sketchy, but as gestural with the strokes and be as realistic as I could at the same time.
Kris, what was the tone?
The tone was a gray, no, actually it was a sage green.
Like yellow ochre, it looked like.
Well, some of them some of the panels I use have a sort of ochre. Oh no, okay, this one is the sage green.
Oh, I see.
Others, The others are very similar to the boot color, like you see, sort of a coyote brown, or so one of the tones is called Sahara, and one of the tones is called Dune, and then this one I think it was just called Sage. And these are done. These are prepped canvases. I usually will tone mine if I can as in a gray or an umber or some sort of thing like that. These are actually called Pro-Tone canvas panels that you can buy with this nice tone. They have a nice, perfect sort of texture, even texture. And so I like doing things like this because, especially if the color of the tone matches a lot of the things in the picture, it just helps provide a unity across the canvas. And half your job is done if you just match some of the values and wash over or whatever.
Well, it's kind of like the old masters techniques.
It's a crazy amount of confidence you've got on display there, but I could see this being done on a mural size, right? This being 10, 12 feet high and running
paint with a big brush.
Well, you know, one of the great things I love about this too, right? Having been the instructor for these Marines for 6 months, I can tell you exactly who they are because Kris, you just did such a great job of catching those facial features. And I mean, you know, you got Lieutenant Kudo, you've got Lieutenant Casey, you've got Lieutenant Stevenson, you've got Lieutenant Cardenas. Like I recognize every single one of them, and it's just super cool that you did that. And I think what is going to make this that much better of a piece, not just because of its realism and accuracy, but these Marines are going to come back around and see this one day, and they're going to be able to recognize themselves, right? And their kids are going to be able to recognize themselves. And so that's just really cool. I love that about your work, is just your ability to capture accurate facial features.
I just had a lady come in 2 or 3 days ago, the first group I've had in months come into the museum. They're a group from TBS, and one had just graduated or was going to graduate, and she knew the previous Fox company or whatever.
Yeah.
She recognized one of the ladies in this piece.
That's fun. Good. That's awesome.
The one thing I will say more, just to be quick, this was a very also diverse. This is like America here, a little slice of America. Today's youth, you know, the flower of our youth. We have pretty much every genders and races and such going on. So this is the Marine Corps today.
That's a good point. And now that you say that really does have that impression, right? You've got one Caucasian dude to the point to where like he's gonna sunburn in 2 minutes, and then you've got like the Hispanics and the females and just, you know, the Italian and just the array of people that make up America, but more importantly make up the volunteer force we call the Marine Corps, right? And that's awesome.
So it was cold. I'm not sure if that comes clear in
yeah, it was chilly.
We were all having real problems feeling our fingers after about 20-25 minutes each time.
It was very hard to get in the zone at that time, those days.
Well, but like it goes back to the point, right? Like, and you know, Quantico just providing such a great opportunity to do that, because we didn't really get an opportunity to do much training in the summer. But had we been doing something like this, say in the peak of July or August, we'd have been dealing with sweating all over our material and having to deal with that human factor. And so I think that's just a great component to face and to just learn to work through mentally and physically, because you know, when Richard and I went to Norway, though I expected it to be colder, that was the first time I dealt with kind of being that exposed and having to focus on something so skillfully articulate. And it was that, I mean, you know, the mental battle was half of it for me personally.
This is a great shot because I recognize, you know, you got the instructor, and this resembles one of the photographs of CJ doing his thing. We'll see it in a little bit, but this is great because it's dramatic and it shows all the young faces watching intently as the instructor is really giving the deal.
And the book is
go ahead.
All right. Can you go back to the shot of Vic sitting on the ground before this one?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the rudiments of this were put in sitting on the ground there.
Yeah.
Just bringing back memories. This is good. I like this.
This is another great example too, this shot of how people come up and they sort of, it really does communicate, you know, people love to feel appreciated, obviously, and I think this helps, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all start out not really getting it at the beginning of the day, and by the end of our 3 or 4 days, everybody wanted to give us their email addresses.
Yeah. Or like would purposely stand next to us still and, you know, professionally posed.
This that fellow back there, his mother contacted me for a shot of Second Lieutenant Mitchell, I think, or Stevenson. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they contacted me for a copy of this.
Nice.
Great. So Richard, some of these shots I've noticed, I know that you have a certain style when you're there sketching, and I noticed some of them are a little more filled in. Did you do a lot of that later?
Yeah, so I was working with a brush pen, which I don't know why I did it. I just
Oh, I remember, yes.
pure masochism. I decided to use a brush pen. I think Vic's got to talk about this piece.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that's Captain Baumann in the picture there,
Oh, yeah.
overseeing the exercise, and I had taken enough photographs, and actually I think it's like 2 or 3 slides before that where there's a picture of me kind of like running alongside them. Yes, as they're racing. But I don't believe that was the exact scene, but it was what we did, and I'd gotten smart enough that I was starting to take just videos, and I would just run across, and then I'd freeze frame back in the studio to get the right shot. Because honestly, you cannot draw this in the 15 seconds that the actual actions occur. So that that Marine on the right side, she's off the picture already. By the time that the 2 Marines on the left side have already started advancing, all right? And Captain Baumann has already has shifted 500 times. So there is an advantage to the camera, but not in the intent of replicating, not being a slave to the camera, but to trying to catch the energy. I really liked what happened with the young woman Marine on the right side. I loved the way she was running into that fog, into that all the smoke.
Yeah, I like also you have this heroic figure in the center, CJ. He's standing heroically, looking, overseeing. He forms a compositional element. You have a wall or a building that's stayed or whatever solid on the left, and he doesn't block the motion. He helps it go along. It's very nice.
Well done, CJ.
It's what we call narrative illustration. So and in a sense, it's another way of saying it's a kind of panorama. I've really come to love panoramas in terms of dealing with Marine themes, because you can actually tell a story from one end to the next.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was always impressed how they managed to ignore us for a lot of the time too, because this is really serious training for them, and then they've got us 4 thrown into the mix.
Yeah.
It's great when they do finally ignore you, because you know how it is. You're sketching somebody or taking their photograph, and they all want to smile or give signals or something.
There was a point when we were doing their advances on buildings, and we were in the buildings, and I just found myself standing in a corridor that was assaulted through the doorway, and suddenly realized I was right at the crossfire point as they're throwing grenades up and down the corridor. I don't know where to go, which way. You're just like stand and try and become part of the wall and try not to get knocked over.
Ain't that the truth?
But that actually makes me nervous when and I don't see it that I haven't experienced it almost at all with the Marines, but like with the Air Force or Army, sometimes they start being aware of you, and they're telling you that they're watching you, and you're thinking, no, you're not supposed to be watching me at all.
Yeah, it starts to influence what you're able to capture, or the genuine, environment.
No, I'm worried more about the effect on their training. They should not be paying attention to me.
Oh.
I was just thinking about my art. Sorry, that's noble.
Maybe I was a little too selfish. I don't know. Sorry.
Back a couple.
Oh, Mitchell, that's a good one.
Yeah, this one. This is CJ walking down the road, just looking for somebody to pick on.
Yeah, pick up the tempo, he says. You're gonna, what, no, lose momentum? What was it?
Yeah, you're gonna lose one. Yeah, something about tempo probably.
Yeah.
So I've got a question because Richard, for you, I think I asked you the day that we were there because you were carrying, I think you were carrying those tonal markers. Yeah, and I don't know if you ended up doing that as an after fact or if you did them there on location. But what made you do the markers instead of the side of the pencil like you normally do? Were you just experimenting?
I was feeling a bit creating the same stuff over and over again. And I enjoy making the marks in the moment, and that's what I was doing with the pen. And it just struck me that it would be good to have some variety of stuff to fill in. It's me dabbling in color, but only in black and white is what's happening here. But yeah, I could throw the tones on really quickly. I thought I'd actually be able to do it fast enough that I'd be able to do it in the moment, but there's no chance of that because there's always something else to draw. So as soon as I've got enough lines down, I immediately think, okay, good enough, let's go draw the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's a nice feel, but it was too painful to actually, I don't think I'll do it again. I like this one. That one was all live, so that's a good one. That was around one of those big groups, and she was a great figure.
Yeah, that was Lieutenant Foster. Did you intend to do black and blue like that?
Yeah, I've started mixing it up like that. You know, I don't say I'm stuck in a groove. I can do different stuff. 2 different color pencils.
I like it.
Yeah, I pulled that off of Vic. It was Vic's. That's Vic's thing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you meant to, but it just kind of emphasizes the temperature of the environment because she's wearing a ton of cold weather gear, right? The scarf and her neck gaiter up on over her mouth and nose, and you can kind of see the thickness of her gloves. And to me, that blue just kind of, kind of gives a vibe of like a chill.
Yeah, the cold. I actually felt like the fans did okay, but it's just kind of a creeping cold that gets right in the middle of your body, and it gets really tough to feel like drawing at all after a while. It's so cold.
Yeah. Gets into your bones.
Yeah. And the Marines were sleeping in the buildings. I could at least cozy up to Kris at night.
Well, we had the first night when we slept in the cars. My truck car turned into a studio because Richard is he has a very good work ethic, by the way, everybody.
Yeah, he does. He will not
stop until it's finished.
He puts me as a Marine to shame.
Yeah, he's great.
This was the one where I actually got a fair amount of this drawing that he'd just been, I think he was mown down by a 240 along with some
Yeah, I remember the assault on this one. Go to the next picture real quick. I think, no. There was, that was like a major assault that had happened, and he was like the first to be dead in the street. So he just sat there long enough for Richard.
Yes, I remember.
I was good with him, and then somebody came and saved his life and dragged him off.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You'll see action photos of it coming up soon.
Yeah.
There's some great shots.
It was embarrassing because it was my platoon and we got schwacked. It was embarrassing.
This is one where I was definitely in awe of Vic's ability to sketch things from memory. Not because he wasn't looking at what he was drawing, but these 2 guys in this position, they would not hold still. Like usually I'm good at spotting our position of repose where they're going to come back to. They were setting up a firing position for an ambush on an assault that was coming. And they just couldn't get this machine gun exactly the way they wanted it. So every time I started the drawing, the guy would move. The 2 of them would move. He'd suddenly go from being left-handy to right-handy. It was just insane.
Yeah.
And you'll see all the sketches Vic goes through here to make it happen, I think.
Yeah, there was he put the tire on to provide more support for the front of his weapon, and then he took the tire off, and then he put a block, or then he put it was challenging to keep up with the changes.
We did a great job.
Eventually they assaulted through the other end of the building and it didn't make any difference.
Yes, and unfortunately the gun jammed. This is a very selfish shot because Richard was sitting on the floor and this chair was sitting there empty. And I just sat down and Richard looked at me like, oh, shit, I should have taken that chair.
It looks like a scene on a porch, like an old gentleman just relaxing on the porch.
A very old gentleman.
I gave you the benefit of the years, Vic.
Yeah.
Aha.
So you see, what you're watching now is a progression of the sketches along with photographs that were taken. And now we're getting back to the studio, and we take the drawing and we start slapping some watercolor on it just to note the colors for myself.
Mm-hmm. Can you, Vic, real quick, can you talk through your process of creating this? So, like, are you putting down a pencil sketch first?
First, always first.
Well,
the pencil sketch goes down, and I just remembered how the light was coming in through the windows. And of course, then I went back, when I finally got back to the studio, I had the photographs to work from, and I was able to start dropping in the values, the tone. But these were just notations to myself.
yeah.
The final painting became much more the real colors of what
Yeah. Gosh, that looks so dang good.
And this is oil, right, Victor?
That's oil on panel.
Very nice.
Jeez, how big is that, roughly?
I think it's 24 by 30.
Good deal.
Jeez.
My favorite part is his observer behind him, because I caught him, and I really wanted so much in this picture, not just that frozen pose of the gunner, but to try to capture that constant motion. He was looking out the windows and telling him how to readjust his fire, and he'd just be dodging back and forth, and I wanted to catch some of that. So it's kind of fuzzy. I've thrown that those quick dashes of brushwork to not solidify the figure, but actually try to keep it in motion.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very impressive. A couple of parts
yeah.
I really like are the glasses on the guy in motion. That's just a brilliant pick out of the light.
Yeah.
And the light that's coming through that murder hole just below his elbows and torso there on the gunner. That murder hole light's fantastic too.
Yeah, if you put your finger in front of that light coming underneath his torso, it suddenly changes the picture and it becomes less dramatic.
Yeah, it really does.
This is all stuff you learn or acquire by experience, and also just looking at the masters like Bellows or Singer Sargent, how they drop those really important accents of color.
And I think
light.
It's something that oil, I think, can do very well, and watercolor can too, but not, I think oil, this is where it really shines, no pun intended.
Okay.
Now, this is my final conglomeration of a sketch.
Yes, that was your from the floor sitting on your freezing ass. You.
Just same guy, different perspective.
Yeah, well, it's the same guy in about 4 or 5 different positions, all molded into one.
Yeah.
Seriously, he went from being left-handed to right-handed.
Oh,
That's that changes everything.
No, I like this Marine because she's basically almost as tall as her rifle is, and she was out there doing the Marine thing the entire time though, and it was obviously definitely part of the the Marine she was with. She was one of them. This I think this was while you were giving them a pep talk, CJ, and she was sitting on this tire.
She was on the far left-hand side, yeah.
She really looked a bit kind of sorry for herself, like she couldn't wait for it to be over.
Yeah. There it is. Me running my suck.
Yeah, sun's almost on the horizon. He's still talking.
It was only like 30 minutes, but I lost him once he got in the shadows. They started shivering. I lost him.
Yeah.
I drew so many helmets from the back, so many
Yeah.
sketch pages with nothing on them but a helmet.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the problem. Everything's moving so fast that you get the helmet and part of the face and then it moves. Oh well, there's a helmet. Yeah, thank goodness for these times you can sit and draw them while they're standing learning.
Yeah, that is a nice break from the chasing around trying to draw them. At least you feel like you've accomplished something. I see what you mean about the blue, though.
Yeah.
Cold.
Chilling effect. I don't think Captain Smith wanted us there at all. She gave me a funny look a few times.
Really?
Yeah.
Cardenas, Lieutenant Cardenas shows up in our drawings quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does. Mm-hmm.
I think she's in the painting I did too, isn't she?
She is. Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this fellow, was it Zolkowski?
Zakowski, yeah.
Big lad.
Yeah, big lad.
He's an intimidating fellow. He's a big teddy bear, but you don't want to wrestle him, that's for sure.
No, I'm sure not.
He's a big Polish meat eater. There she is again. Oh, actually, that's probably part of.
That was my view.
That's the same scene, yeah.
Yeah, we were next to each other.
Yeah, because there's Lieutenant Casey standing next to her.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I just was a couple feet over, same shot.
The mother of Lieutenant Mitchell in the back here.
Mm-hmm.
She, when I had posted these drawings, she said, "Wait a minute, that's my son. That's my son."
Yeah.
It's always great to get an email from somebody in the family saying, "You drew my kid."
Now, how did she know that? So when we did our cruise book, I know we put. I don't know if it was all of the MOUT stuff in there, but they put probably a good 15 or 20 of our sketches inside the student cruise book. So maybe that's where she saw it, but did she tell you where she saw the picture at? And
I thought maybe I had posted it on Instagram, and I had told some of the Marines that I was going to be posting these drawings. So maybe she had seen it because he resent it to her.
Yeah, maybe.
But that other drawing, he's also in another drawing where you have the close up of the instructor, the hands. He's dead behind. He's in. That was the one she contacted me about. She said, "You drew my son."
Nice.
I think we're on day 3 now. What's a cruise book, CJ?
So when the students graduate the course, they collect all the photos that have been taken from within the platoons, and then and they put together just like a kind of memorable photo album kind of thing. But there's also the formal pictures of the students in their uniform. It's like first platoon, and then it shows everybody. You know, it's like a yearbook, kind of like a yearbook. Stevenson.
So,
Good that you recognize them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And this is the corridor where I got run over. And they spent a long time setting up that ambush as well, and then were completely Marine-sided.
And it never happened, really.
Oh, this is a great shot.
That is a great shot.
So wide it doesn't fit on the screen. There he is.
There he is. And old Lieutenant Beeger.
Wow.
The old
Look at
man.
Victor. Victor's like, I'm done.
Finally.
I swear to God, that's where my 66 years was really kept.
That's fun.
Oh, Kelly broke the screen.
Ah,
Yeah.
here it is.
Here are the candid photos. I feel like I'm coming up here soon too.
Yeah, here you
Yeah.
go. This is in the
Yeah.
morning.
Morning shave. I think it was probably like 5:30 or so. I was not. That was a rough day. Oh man, I love that photo. It's such a good photo.
Yeah, that was
So
pretty
here
good.
we are.
That's kind of the end.
I felt like such a wuss in that cold.
You're so bundled up there, Victor.
Yeah, I know. I'm the funniest looking son of a bitch in that picture.
I think it's a close race.
All right. Well, here's our wonderful group shot. This says it all right here. You've got the stumbling around artist, fresh from the battlefield, and it's back in the background. All the cold stone of the. That's an amazing shot.
Yeah, it was a good one.
We actually are smiling in this one. That's good. We're not too wrecked.
I can't tell if I think I'm still pissed off at one of my students. I can't tell.
What did we get out of that? We had 3 days. We probably came away with probably 100 solid sketches from the field. At least, we're talking about at least what? We're into maybe double figures of actual finished studio paintings as well.
Yeah.
I'm still working on some.
It's an impressive work for 4 guys for 3 days.
Well, even though we weren't able to deploy technically anywhere, this kind of stuff is excellent. So CJ, it's very good that you were there and very serendipitous for us because we get to keep training. That's for us, right?
Right.
And it is a Marine Corps evolution. So all the important things in the regular deployment, the gear and the activity and the camaraderie, it's still there. So we get to be benefactors or whatever of that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a perfect environment, and it's unfortunate that can't be like an endearing thing for me. But all that to say is that it is arguably a perfect place for artists to train, because like you said, they get the full kit issue. At least, standard, right? They get the standard issue that you need to be familiar with: the Kevlar, the flak, the drinking hoses, and then the weapon systems and the gloves. Like so you're seeing 75 to 90% of what you would see if you were in Iraq, minus the unique. Maybe the Kevlar is going to be the new ECV or whatever, or maybe it's a new vehicle type. But yeah, TBS is just such a great platform for the artists to come. And looking back, we could have done it a little bit more probably if I pushed a little harder. But considering what I was juggling, I'm looking back and just very glad that we exploited the opportunities we did. Because I think that being the last event that we did, as a group, that was our 4th time to go out to MOUT. Over the 2.5, 3 years I was there. Yeah. And so, it doesn't sound like a lot, but coordinating everybody's schedule and getting that to happen. And MOUT wasn't the only thing we did, but all that to say is we need to find another place that can be a regular like that. Quantico just happens to be geographically convenient. And I was telling Richard as well, like, my career real quick, my career is going to soon put me back in the fleet. And my hope is to be an advocate now from within the operating forces. So instead of being this guy who's sitting at TBS, knocking on units' doors, being like, hey, like, this is who we are. Can we come join you? It's now me on the inside being like, hey, we're deploying my unit and I'm going to Iraq next, fall. Here's an open invitation. And then I can work inside with my personal boss, who's the battalion commander, or run up the chain of command. And then, oh, by the way, I'm going there anyways. So let's just drag along a couple artists.
There you
go. I'm optimistic about that in the next year or two. But I'm just trying to creatively think ahead on how we can keep this thing rolling as things shift around.
Another reason it's important, I think, that CJ didn't touch on just now, is this is 4 times we've done it at MOUT, which is 100 lieutenants who are going to go on to who knows what career within the Marine Corps, and that's 400 lieutenants who are going to spread out through the Corps over the next few years, and they've all had experience with artists in the field. And they'll talk about it, they'll recognize it when it happens. So I think it's important for us to continue to feed that stream so that they continue to recognize us in the field and the value of it in what we do. So we need to continue to work to make that bond tight with where the Marines are trained, I think, because it's good training for us and it's good training for them as recognizing the value of us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Victor, anything in closing?
No, Richard spoke very eloquently there, and Captain always speaks eloquently and on point. And I'm glad that he covered most of the explanations tonight, because he knows the lingo, but also he's so concise. I'm not concise, so it's good. I enjoyed it.
Thank you once again, gentlemen. Of course, special thanks to Richard for getting all these nice slides together and everybody for being involved and being available. So what we're going to do now is get ready for some live Q&A where the audience can ask our artists some questions.
That sounds great.
Aha. Hello, Victor. How are you? Is it?
I think we can let everybody off the hook, Chris, no?
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, so we've come to the end of our evening, our wonderful day. So we're going to basically just open it up at the end here. We're going to sort of end, and you guys can chit chat amongst yourselves. We'll stop the recording and all that stuff, but you guys can hang out and just leave as you wish. But we're going to hear, does anybody have one last question for the artists that were involved in the military operations in urban terrain?
I have a question, if you guys will allow it.
Go for it, Alec.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, because one of the things I've seen with you guys being out there in the field is varying degrees of equipment preparation. Like it looked like a few that went out to 29 Palms a year or two ago were actually given plate carriers and body armor. And I think that the being able to go out to the MOUT town and TBS is great, but has there ever been any talk or consideration with, rather than being there as observers, almost treating it as potential, you know, kind of combat training for the artists as well? I mean, if the intention is for us eventually to be somewhere near a combat zone, has there ever been any intention to have the artists out there kind of peeking behind walls and trying to stay out of line of sight of, you know, I know that would maybe involve implementing the artist too much into the exercise, but it might be an interesting dynamic as opposed to being able to just sit out kind of in the open and be a kind of a fly on the wall observer.
So, you know, a bunch of us already have this experience, and you're right, it's an excellent idea, and we actually brought it up last time we were out. In fact, at this very MOUT, I think we spoke about how it might be important for the same Marines that we were just discussing to understand what it's like to handle embedded Marines, how you move in the field when you have embedded civilians or embedded public affairs officers, or people not from your unit within foot patrols and things, and then treat it much more that you're not a fly on the wall. When everybody starts firing at MOUT, we don't lie down, and we move aside from what's going on. So you're right, it's an opportunity to train them in what it's like to have people within their care who might do something stupid and how they have to react differently when they have an embedded civilian. And it's also good training for us as to how to behave when you are in the field, that you move with the group of Marines, you don't step off the path, you don't pick anything up, all those kind of things that you naturally learn eventually, if you're lucky, in the field. It's a great place to learn all those things. And you're right, we're not doing that when we're there as voyeurs, just drawing what we see and standing up when everybody else is lying down. So it's definitely possible, but I think that would come as being, we'd have to really insert ourselves into that Quantico program, and we're not quite there yet. And partly that's, I think we were almost ready to make that step, and then COVID came along and we didn't quite make the advances this year we were hoping for. Chris, am I wrong in that?
Yeah, no, we'll get there. We'll hopefully get back up and running. And we had some things postponed and some canceled, but we'll get back on there. We got a lot of people who are good at taking initiative. All right, so that's good for today. We're going to actually, I think Charlie has a last sort of closing remarks for us.